Hello and welcome. My name is Thomas Kevin Dolan. I'm the writer and author of Little Fag, A Journey of Self-Acceptance and Healing. And today I'm honored to read chapter 6, The Act of Correcting a Past Wrong, and it begins on page 243 of my memoir. I failed. I needed help. I needed to heal. How could I learn to love myself? What I braved. The man I had fallen in love with, after leaving my marriage, encouraged me to join the YMCA as a fresh start to my new out life. Plus, it's unlikely your wife will join, or so he said. In my momentary panic, how I wished that was true. She had joined only the week before. It was a year after I'd come out to my wife. We hadn't spoken for over 365 days. When we met on the stairs at the YMCA, I nervously extended my hand and asked, "How are you?" Silently, as both of her hands held mine, she looked into my eyes. The peace I'd known her to possess was back. As I cleared my throat, she let go of my hand and simply stood quiet. These words fell from my mouth. "Would you please be open to a conversation? We could sit downstairs in the cafeteria." Without hesitation, she said, "That would be great." In 1988, there was not a legal precedent for a gay man to leave a heterosexual marriage. One of the means by which to do so was to live separate and apart for 1 year. That was one option for our divorce. I remember a conversation with my former wife's lawyer about the reason for divorce. She snidely inferred using abuse as the reason for it. I quickly said I would contest that. Besides, the abuse reason implied physical abuse, and thankfully, neither of us experienced that. I felt her intimidating tone when she stated any judge would grant a divorce on that basis, particularly mental abuse. From a place of calmness that I was unsure of its source, I quietly said, "Not a judge who might be gay." The reason for divorce became irreconcilable differences and living separate and apart for a year. I was proud to have pushed back when I felt homophobia was being used against me. As we wandered to the corner of the cafe, I found myself doing exactly what I'd always done with my former wife while married, pulling out her chair and having her sit first. We both gently laughed as she sat down. The first words that came out of my mouth, directly from my heart, with tears in my eyes, were, "I am so sorry for hurting you. Please forgive me." She bowed her head momentarily and responded by saying, "I hurt you too. Please forgive me." Our relationship had been firmly rooted in the faith of the Catholic Church. Both of us knew the power and freedom of saying sorry and asking for forgiveness. It was an energetic combination of contrition that could set both of us free. I gently responded by acknowledging her apology and saying, "Thank you for telling me you are sorry. I do forgive you. I have love for you. How could I not?" She quickly asked me, "Do you remember the rite of Christian initiation class I took?" A bit puzzled, I said, "Of course I do. You were so brave in doing some amazing work." She added, "The teaching from one of the sessions encouraged us to always tell the person who said sorry and had asked for forgiveness to directly tell them that you forgive them." Feeling a bit scared, without knowing where she was headed with the comment, I took a breath and remained quiet. Next, from her lips, with a quiet voice, I heard, "I forgive you, Thomas Kevin. I completely forgive you." We both leaned into a loving embrace. I was crying. She was an amazing hugger. After catching my breath, I said, "I completely forgive you." She grabbed my hand and said, "In my moments of greatest despair about losing you, what terrified me most was thinking we'd never forgive each other. Thank you for making all that go away." Nervously, I giggled, using humor to deflect the emotion. I said, "Hell hath no fury," like a Protestant converted to Catholicism. There was no way I was going to risk the wrath of you at some point. We both laughed. We had both applied a balm of love we'd always had for one another. The pain I had felt was gone. The love I felt for this amazing woman, this profound teacher in my life, was again present for me. Her grace allowed me to shift from being in love with her to having love for her. Her grace allowed me the humbling gift for my lifetime. In this exchange, I braved allowing my ingrained sense of running away, sourced from the power of fear, to not take over the moment. Not only did I choose to be present, but I also allowed myself to say yes to being forgiven. It became a powerful gift of self-love and redemption. The unlearning. Why did you get married? Many would ask after I came out. On the day of my marriage ceremony, fear was the culprit that robbed me of the life I was really desiring. It was an emotion that rendered me powerless. It took over all of my choices and actions. I could even see that allowing it to overtake my choices and actions would undoubtedly forever shape my future. The choice I was making whittled away at my self-esteem and confidence. It wouldn't add to my character. It wouldn't make me feel stronger or more alive. It merely allowed me to disappear. Fear had me believe that I can't do it. I'm wrong, the cost is too high, and the path ahead is too difficult. I shrunk in the face of adversity. I hid when I needed to be seen by my authentic self. I kept my mouth shut when I needed to hear my inner voice. Fear kept me at a standstill. Its guarantee to me on my wedding day was an unfulfilled life. It felt vital that I discover why I married and what qualities I would need to embrace to write my own life. For a long time, it wasn't a bit of work I really wanted to do. As I searched for healing after coming out, I imagined the kind of confidence that went beyond the definitions we find in dictionaries or motivational seminars or self-help books. I look for a new way of understanding confidence. I think there are two kinds of confidence: false confidence of the ego and divine confidence. I felt I needed divine confidence. False confidence was the mask I wore that allowed me to hide my insecurities and to trick myself into believing I was okay. Constructed from the achievements and accomplishments my ego inventoried, false confidence was literally my disguise, a disguise fueled by judgment and comparison. My well-constructed story of being hated, unlovable, and shunned if I came out was the biggest fear I hid from. False confidence convinced me I had it all together. Yet I could feel that this false confidence, this false self-confidence, never really did its job of protecting me from my deepest insecurity. When I was all dressed up in my false confidence, ready to walk into any aspect of my life, all it would take was a sideways look from anybody, and my insecurity would rear its ugly head. I learned that my insecurities could grab me without a moment's notice and take my feeling of confidence away. That was because I never really had it to begin with. It was false confidence of the ego. By beginning to look for the reason I married, committing to uncovering my truth, I risked introducing myself to a new paradigm of confidence where I could discover my true and authentic confidence. It was the only way to access true confidence. It began a journey, a lifting out of the fear of the individual ego structure into living into a brave new world, a paradigm of connection with a force greater than myself alone. Yet I felt like I needed another quality that would support this journey of self-discovery for myself. To reveal why I married would take coverage, it would take courage, and not some run-of-the-mill bargain basement brand. Initially, I thought of courage as something I could do, something I thought of or a decision I would make, I was looking for something that I had as a younger boy that perhaps for some reason I had abandoned. I was drawn to studying and eventually became certified in a coaching paradigm or a model called courage coaching. It was a warrior's courage, the courage I received at birth. It was a level of consciousness, whether or not I had experienced it, that was always close. It had always been developed, and I knew I had savored it as a younger person. It was a state of being I had actually forgotten about. When I stood in and chose to be this warrior, I didn't have to do courage. A warrior's courage is poignant, purposeful, and directed where change needs to be made. This courage was a holy gift that already existed within me. When I awakened to this courage, I opened to a life-enhancing force that would lift me back into my power and guide me home to my authentic nature. When I allowed this courageous warrior inside of me to guide me to the truth about why I got married, this is what I heard. I was sacred, holy, and beautiful. This energy empowered me with strength, clarity, and confidence. I knew I was participating, and I knew I was to participate in my healing and reunite with all the other powerful warriors. With the highest certainty, my story about why I married existed to teach me, to help me grow, and to evolve my soul. It was not a mistake. I did the best I could at the time. As I reclaimed my courage, I looked closely at the events that were tucked into my consciousness. Revisiting the past brought awareness and closure to release me from the stranglehold of insecurity, fear, and regret. That's when my truth came to me. I had married as a way to escape the dysfunction of my family. I was able to see the drama fueled by fear. I gave up the stories that ruled my life and shattered the self-image I created to affirm my story. I recognized and admitted to the ways I colluded with my past. My unlearning for me was to let go of my old self-image and the blame I harbored for being so deceitful. Although that old self-image did not want me to uncover a new self-image, a more enriching story, or a life I could be proud of, the unlearning was the point of asking the question. I enabled myself to become a messenger for higher love and service, a courageous heart warrior, a warrior of love, on a great trek to being closer to my spirit. The judgment I held and certainly heard from the world that I had occupied as a straight guy all inferred that I'd lied. And that was really difficult for somebody who at the time had a big value for the Catholic Church and all the stuff connected to, sinning and confession. And I remember probably the biggest dollop of shame was heaped at me by two friends that were dear to me in my life at that particular time. But their little girl was the flower girl at our wedding. And they said, our daughter said to us, whether this happened or not, I'm not 100% sure, but our daughter came to us and said, didn't Uncle Tom say that he'd be married to his wife till death do they part? Can you imagine the shame that I felt as they handed me that comment? And of course I did nothing with it. Right, I was silent. I had no voice. I didn't know how to take care of myself. It was devastating, absolutely devastating. And as I took that to healing, particularly in therapy, here's what I came to understand about this notion of lying. Tucked within my truth was this: the death do we part aspect of that vow that I took was actually a death to a part of me. So the moment I could actually breathe life into the gay aspect of me, right? Yes, there was a death in my marriage. It didn't come with me physically, but it came with me energetically. It came with me as an ability to breathe into a life for me and not for somebody else. So I never had an opportunity to kind of hand that bit of shame back to those folks and say, you know what? I did stay with my wife until death did an aspect of me die. I did do that work. At the time, I didn't know it. And I felt it is a really brilliant piece of wisdom. And ultimately, not just for me, but perhaps for other queer people who find themselves in a similar circumstance, where ultimately in those statements that people want to throw back to you that seem absolute, and I thought it was. I really believed that I'd lied. Till death do we part. And of course, that wasn't the case. And yet, on another level, it was absolutely the case. So I felt proud to have done some digging to better understand actually how that lived for me and how I could take something that felt so powerfully out of integrity to an outer world and find it as a huge bit of integrity for myself, which would be the beginning of me being able to actually take better care of myself, to be able to make choices for me and not for somebody else, to nurture and nourish myself in a way that had nothing to do with what an outer world expectation of me was. So I really thought that that piece of work was brilliant on my part, and it really helped heal, let go of the shame. And I often think to myself, to find out whether or not that was true, or whether or not that was something that these folks just threw at me for the sake of shaming. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever know it's true. Besides, maybe chatting with the flower girl at the time, who is now an amazing woman in the world, and ask her if in fact that was something that she did say to her mom and dad. Or I let it go, which I think is probably the best thing to do. Yeah, it's not a hill I want to die on.